Hi, my name is Mac Ehrhardt. I am chairman of Albert Lee Seed and worked here for 35 years. Currently, I spend most of my time working on small grain production. Uh, and so that's what I'm here to talk with you about today is specifically the winter grains that we have for sale in the fall of 2025. And they're represented in this catalog that you can see on the screen, which you probably received in the mail. You can also look it up on our website and page through it, and that's what I'm going to do now as I talk about the different varieties. Thanks for joining me today, and appreciate the time you're taking to look at this. So this is just the intro pages, and it talks about what's inside the catalog. I'm not going to go through this very much. There are different ways to order. We encourage you to order from your local dealer whenever you can. You also can order directly if you live in an area that's not serviced by a dealer. And we also have online ordering. Talks about the return and replant policy that I'm not going to go through today. Really just want to focus on the varieties that are available for this call. So the first thing I'm going to talk about are the winter wheats that we're offering this year, and there are two classes that we offer. We offer hard red winter wheat and soft red winter wheat. We do not offer any white wheats at this time. So you can see there's an agronomic table on the left, which has some information about disease and some yield numbers if we have actual comparisons between varieties. But I'm just going to focus on the varieties themselves. So for hard red winter wheat this year, we offer SD Midland, which, as the name implies, is a variety was developed in South Dakota. It's one of the reasons we carry it is that it has excellent milling and baking quality. Which is a key thing for organic farmers and other farmers conventional farmers that are looking to sell their wheat into a milling and baking market. It also has very good yield potential. You can see the bullet point there. It had the third highest 3-year average in the University of Minnesota trials. It's a little bit of a taller wheat with, as I said, good protein and test weight. And a big thing for us is it has very good natural resistance to Fusarium head blight or scab, which is a huge problem for organic farmers and also a significant problem for conventional farmers, although they have the ability to spray with fungicides to help control that. The next wheat is Viking 211, which is also Blue River 211. When it's in a Viking bag, it's conventional. When it's in a Blue River bag, it would be certified organic. This is a private variety that we licensed from one of the major grain breeding programs in the world. We licensed it because it's a really nice balanced combination of yield potential, milling and baking quality, Fusarium head blight resistance, and just consistent performance across environments. This one in particular has really been well accepted by milling and baking companies. Without naming them, I can just say that I've had talks with some of the companies that buy a lot of hard red winter wheat for milling and baking, and they really like the consistent quality of this variety. It's also a very good yielding variety, and very importantly for organic farmers, it has excellent tolerance to Fusarium head blight. Doesn't mean it's resistant to Fusarium head blight. It can still get it, but it has very good natural tolerance. You can see if, and I didn't mention this about the Midland, but you can see below this one, it shows that we have this one both available both as a conventional seed and also as certified organic seed. The Midland, on the other hand, we only have available as conventional untreated. The last sort of standard variety that we carry this year is SD Pheasant. It would be the highest yielding variety that we offer. It was developed again in South Dakota. Excellent top-end yield potential, very good test weight and protein, and pretty good tolerance to Fusarium head blight resistance as well. So nice all-around wheat with more yield potential, a little less proven in the milling and baking market, but probably just purely for yield, this is the highest yielding one of the hard red winter wheats that we carry. And then the last one is Bickford, which is a unique variety. And this one was developed by the University of Wisconsin in collaboration with several other partners. And I'm not going to name them all here, and I won't remember them anyhow. But it was developed in collaboration with millers and bakers and farmers to find a variety that would work really well for farmers in terms of yield and disease resistance. but also have the flavor characteristics that millers and bakers are looking for, especially small-scale bakeries that are providing artisan breads and baked goods to local communities. This variety has an excellent flavor profile for those folks. And it does have above average tolerance to Fusarium head blight. Again, for organic farmers, that's a big deal. So it's brand new for us this year, and we're the first company to be able to sell it. We have a license from University of Wisconsin, and in order to sell it, and it was grown actually by John Wepking of Meadowlark Organics, who's featured in his catalog. So really nice, what I would call an artisan hard red winter wheat. It will not yield as much as the three above it, but it's bringing additional qualities that that add value that you should be able to capture in local markets. Okay, we also sell soft red winter wheat, and those are all the wheats in the right-hand column. The first one here is Ehrhardt, which is, I guess, akin to the Bickford. It's more of an artisan variety, especially for organic farmers, because it was developed by the University of Illinois as a soft red winter wheat that would work well on organic farms. It gets fairly tall. It's good standing. It shades the weeds pretty well. It has excellent Fusarium head blight tolerance, good yields, and very good all-around performance in the eastern United States. It is not going to yield as much as the three varieties below it, but again, for local bread markets or flour markets, Ehrhardt has become a popular variety in those markets. It's named after Jack Ehrhardt. Some of you may have heard of Jack, a longtime organic grower and an important figure in organic farming systems. We also have Viking and Blue River 801 couple. This is a standard high-yielding soft red winter wheat with good all-around disease resistance, very good all-around yield. It's not going to win state trials, but if you look at it, we've entered it in Illinois and Ohio and Michigan. It's keeping up with other varieties. It's showing average or above average in most of those trials, but again, has very good tolerance to Fusarium head blight. Actually, close to the best available tolerance to Fusarium head blight in soft red winter wheat, and just good consistent performance on organic farms. Also adapted from Wisconsin to the East Coast across the northern United States, probably, I guess, I-70 in north would be its best area of adaptation. Medium tall and pretty good standing. The next one is 822. This variety has just as much yield as the 801, but it's more, we think of it as more of a southern adapted variety. So probably I-80 and south from northeastern Texas across the southern United States to, say, North Carolina. Very well adapted in the southern United States. It's a later heading variety, but it matures quite early, which is a unique characteristic of this one. It is medium tall with very good standability, and once again has excellent tolerance to Fusarium head blight. And then the last one was new last year. It's called 844. This soft red winter wheat is another high yielding variety, broadly adapted across the northern United States. You can see we say from Wisconsin to Kansas and New York to South Carolina. Again, in the southern United States, we'd rather have our customers plant the 822. The other unique thing about 844 is that it is smooth on. So those of you who are looking to graze your winter wheat or take it for forage, that smooth on characteristic leads to better animal intake if the wheat gets more mature than it should, if Mother Nature doesn't cooperate and rains at the wrong time. The awns are smooth and you get less feed refusal because of the sharp awns that wheat can get. So that's it for the wheat pages. And since I can't take questions, I'm going to roll on here. Talking about open pollinated winter rye. So this is as opposed to the hybrid winter rye that I'll talk about in a minute. These, of course, are open pollinated winter rye is probably the most widely sold cover crop in the United States at this point, but it's also used for other purposes. And we do carry 3 varieties this year. Good information on that left-hand page, page number 6, about when to seed it, the seeding rate, the seeding depth. One thing I will just call out, it's possible to seed winter rye too deep. So unlike oats or wheat, which you can put fairly deep, rye doesn't want to be super deep. It wants to be in that top 1.25 inches of soil for best results. And depending on what you're using it for, you can use wildly different rates. People seed rye all the way from 30 pounds to the acre up to close to 200 pounds to the acre in roll-down rye systems. The varieties we're carrying are the sort of the standard variety, the VNS, which stands for variety not stated, and we're selling that interchangeably with AC Hazlitt this year. And the reason for that is most of the VNS rye that's getting sold is in fact AC Hazlitt, which is a widely grown Canadian variety that is excellent winter hardiness. I actually just today saw the winter hardiness trials come out of the University of Minnesota, and Hazlitt was one of the best for winter hardiness. Also is it's among the best yielding of the open pollinated varieties, and is very popular in cover cropping systems. And it's a good one if you want to harvest some for grain to grow your own cover crop seed or use for other purposes. It has no intellectual property around it in the United States, so you can harvest it and resell it without running afoul of intellectual property law. The next one is Danko, which is actually a Polish variety that's become popular in the United States, partly because it has nice plump kernels when it's grown under good conditions and makes a good milling variety. It's not quite as winter hardy as AC Hazlitt, but it still has very good winter hardiness in Minnesota, South Dakota, and Wisconsin. I wouldn't be worried about it most years unless we have a very open winter with little snow cover. Does have very good spring biomass production, and some people like it as a use in roll down rye. And that's kind of it for Danko. We carry Danko both organically and conventionally, just like we carry the winter rye variety not stated both organically and conventionally. And the last open pollinated rye that we carry this year is called ND Gardner. This one we carry specifically as a roll down rye option. And the reason that it's well adapted for roll down rye systems is that it's very early maturing. And if you know about roll down rye systems where you're interplanting soybeans or planting soybeans and then rolling down the rye, you want your rye to mature as soon as possible because you can't roll or crimp that rye until it reaches anthesis, until it's shedding pollen, because at that point, if you crimp it down, it won't try to spring back up and regrow. So obviously, you want to maximize the amount of summer for your soybean crop, so you want an early maturing rye. And ND Gardner has become in our opinion, the best available variety in the northern United States. The popular variety used to be a rustic, but ND Gardner is A, earlier than a rustic, and B, better standing than a rustic. So it's an improved variety. One caveat with ND Gardner is it does have intellectual property around it. It is a plant variety protected variety in the United States, so you cannot save seed and sell it to other people for seed unless you certify that field and sell it as a class of certified seed. So that is a little bit of a restriction around Gardner, which limits its use for some people. But as a roll down rye, it's an excellent choice. We do sell that both conventionally and organically. Hybrid rye. So if you're interested in hybrid rye, or if you've planted it before or understand it, you know that the big selling point for hybrid winter rye is it simply yields a lot more, right? It doesn't do that every time because like all this stuff, we are planting it in soil, and Mother Nature ultimately has a lot to say about how much things yield. But when planted side by side with an open pollinated variety and they both have good establishment, hybrid rye can usually yield about 50% more. There have been trials where hybrid rye has yielded as much as 200 bushels to the acre, believe it or not. So it has yield potential that is really far superior to any of the available open pollinated varieties. A couple of caveats about that. In order to get the big yields off of hybrid rye, you have to plant it earlier than you would normally plant your winter rye. So a lot of winter rye gets kind of thrown on after soybeans or maybe even after corn. And the open pollinated varieties often work just fine because they're very winter hardy and resilient. Hybrid rye are a little more finicky, and to get that extra yield out of them, you have to get them planted early enough that you get good tillering in the fall. So depending on what part of the country you live in, it kind of tends to correspond roughly to the ideal time to seed winter wheat. In southern Minnesota, where I grew up, we'd like to see you seed this by October 10th for sure. And really, we'd feel better if you seeded it by the end of September to get that good fall tillering. such that it comes on fast in the spring and you get the yield benefit of the hybridity. Okay, so on to the specific varieties. Oh, another unique thing about hybrid rye, it's unlike open pollinated rye, it is not sold by the bushel or by the 50-pound unit. Hybrid rye is sold by the 1 million viable seeds. So KWS is in charge of this. They decided they wanted to have it be sold as a 1 million seed unit. And so they also are specifying they want you to plant about 800,000 seeds per acre. So if you look at the top of page 9 there, you'll see in bold print there, explains that, and then the seeding method itself is explained on page 8. So that's unique to this product to be sold in that with that unit of measure. Also note that if you do order it in bags, and we sell most of it in tote bags, which contain 25 1 million seed units, if you buy it in paper bags from us, and you buy 10 units, you're going to get 20 bags because each bag contains half a unit. So I'm sure I've confused you by now, but we'll roll on to the differences between the varieties. The three on the left, Teo, Serafino, and Receptor, are all grain varieties. And if you read the bullet points, you'll see they have different strengths and weaknesses. I would say Teo is the one that's probably best adapted to the north. And it has a ton of top-end yield. Really does well on highly productive soils. Probably the one that you need to be the most careful of about planting late. It needs to be planted at ideal winter wheat planting time or before in order to get those big yields. Serafino is one we've carried for several years now, and it's become the workhorse variety, the variety you can kind of plant anywhere, and it does pretty well. It's widely accepted. All three of these, in fact, are widely accepted in the milling and distilling markets. And we've sold it from North Dakota to Texas with good results. So kind of the best adapted all-around variety. Receptor is new and people are excited about it because it's has a lot of top-end yield in addition to excellent ergot tolerance, as in fact all these varieties do, because the hybrids. There's a couple of reasons they have better ergot tolerance. One, they produce a lot more pollen than open pollinated rye, and that means it's tougher for the ergot spores to get onto that head and infect it because there's so much pollen. And two, they're pollinating on all very uniformly. So the hybrids are all heading and reaching anthesis almost on the same day. And so there's not this long window of pollen shed and capture that leaves an opening for ergot to get in there. So all of them are much better for ergot than the open pollinated varieties, but of these, Receptor is the best. Also has excellent drought tolerance. Bono was a longtime favorite variety of many farmers that planted hybrid rye, and Receptor really is the one that replaces Bono. The two on the right are hybrid rye that are especially developed for forage. And so in trials, you can see that these hybrid rye, even though they're shorter than several of the triticales out there, actually produce just as much milk, or if not more milk per acre than the triticales, and are very well accepted by animals for feed. So these have become popular with dairy farmers and other people who are trying to maximize forage production. They also head out really early, or they reach maturity fairly early in the spring so that you can harvest them early to get your second forage crop planted. If you'll notice, there's a distinction between the two. Aviator, they're saying, should not be planted in the southern U.S., and by southern they mean south of Missouri, because it has a long vernalization period. So you kind of want to call us and ask us about these two varieties if you're thinking of using one of them for forage, so we make sure you plant the right one. All right, let's move on to winter barley. We launched winter barley for our company, I think now 5 years ago, and our sales have increased every year. I will say the winter of 2024-25 was really rough on winter barley. We lost a lot of fields to winter kill. I say that openly because of the small grains of the winter grains that we sell, winter barley is the least winter hardy at this point. We sell the most winter hardy varieties that we can get, and I'll talk about those specifically in a minute, but it's still not as winter hardy as either winter wheat, winter rye, or winter triticale. There's a couple really exciting things about winter barley though. You're planting it in the fall, so you don't have to worry about planting your small grain in the spring. It just comes up green right away and gets going. It also, by virtue of that, matures much earlier than your spring planted small grains. And so our seed grower, for 2 years in a row, he combined in northern Iowa, he combined his winter barley on June 21st. And that's at least 3 weeks earlier than any other barley in the area. And so for him, if you're combining your barley on June 21st, there's still enough time to plant a soybean crop. And so is that going to work for everybody? Is everybody going to be able to double crop barley or winter barley and soybeans? No, but by virtue of maturing so much earlier than spring planted grains, it gives you a great option. It's also very good yielding. We've had yields of winter barley over 100 bushels to the acre, which is significantly higher than spring planted barley, and it makes very good feed. We do carry one winter barley specifically for malting. That's the Violetta, and it's a 2-row for malting. That of the varieties we carry is the least winter hardy. Both Orbit and Equinox are more winter hardy. Violetta comes from Lima grain. It's a German variety. It's a very good yielding variety. Has pretty good all-around disease resistance, and again is accepted in some malting markets. So that's the one to plant if you want a 2-row malting barley. That's a winter barley. The other two that we carry are winter barleys specifically for feed. Unfortunately, this year we are sold out of KWS Orbit, so I'm not going to talk about that today. But we do have a good supply of Equinox, which was the first one released by Dr. Kevin Smith of the University of Minnesota. It's a 6-row winter barley, so again, this one is really mostly for feed, and we've had it yield over 100 bushels to the acre, and it's, I would say, as I already mentioned, very early maturing. It is a facultative variety, and so what that means in winter grain speak is that it can be planted in the spring or the fall. We do not recommend planting it in the spring. We've done that a few times for seed production, and the yields generally are 25 to 40% lower than when you plant it in the fall. So even though it is facultative and you can plant it in the spring, strongly recommend that if you want to plant spring barley, you plant an actual spring barley and not a facultative winter barley. Other thing about Equinox to note, if you plant it, you want to combine it on time. Once it reaches full maturity and it's dry, it's going to start breaking over from the stalk is going to break. Now it's still combinable, but it just starts to, the heads start to snap over, and it makes for a messy looking field, and it's a little tougher to get it combined. So we recommend that you plant it, or that you combine it on time, which again in Minnesota and Iowa has been sometime in June. They make, like all barleys, they make excellent feed for animals. We strongly recommend that you test your feed before you feed it to animals, because barley, wheat, even rye can get fusarium head blight and have vomitoxin, which obviously can cause animal health problems. So in all cases, we recommend testing your grains for the presence of vomitoxin or DON before you feed them. All right, and then we're to the last 2 pages of the winter grain section of this catalog. The first page there on the left is winter triticale, and we carry 2 winter triticales. Tulis is a variety that we licensed and brought over from Germany as a grain variety, but in fact, it's actually a really good dual-purpose variety. Yes, it's an excellent grain producer, but it is tall enough and vigorous enough to be a good silage variety as well, or forage variety as well. It has tremendous top-end yield. The University of Minnesota used to put the open pollinated rye varieties and the triticale varieties in the same trial, and Tulis always out-yielded all the open pollinated varieties. You can see there was one test in La Center, Minnesota, where Tulis went 137 bushels an acre. Not suggesting that it'll do that every time, but we have had seed growers get over 80 bushels an acre, 90 bushels an acre with this variety. So it's got very good grain yields. It's nice and tall, really long head. very winter hardy. In fact, I've talked to a couple of breeders who think Tulis may be one of the most winter hardy winter triticales on the market. And then we do carry a true forage type, and the one we carry this year is called FX1001, which has good data on it out of the South Dakota State forage trials. Compared to other varieties, it is very comparable and better than most. High tonnage, high quality, nearly onless, less than 5% on expression on that, which if you don't get this cut on time for forage, that's a big deal, because if you get those sharp ons on your forage, you can have feed refusal. So it's nice that it's a nearly onless variety and it's sold throughout the United States. So those are the triticales, the winter triticales that we have. And we do carry a winter spelt. I misspoke earlier. Well, actually, I didn't. Winter spelt is the least winter hardy winter grain that we carry. It's even less winter hardy than the winter barleys that we carry. So in general, it should probably be in sort of the southern half of Iowa, southern half of Illinois, or in an area where you just have good winter survival, whether it's lake effect or something else. Spelt is widely grown in Ohio for horse feed and other purposes, and also for milling. It's less commonly used in other parts of the country. There's an area of southern Wisconsin where they produce it. But we get customers who would like to try spelt because they believe that it has less of the gluten that causes problems for some people. And it's used in milling and baking for that purposes, and they want to grow their own. The last variety, the last thing I'm going to talk about today is organic turkey red winter wheat. And this could have been listed on the winter wheat pages, except it's really a unique variety because it's an old, what I would call heirloom variety. It does not yield as much as the winter wheat varieties on that's the first two pages we talked about. But it does have a good following in the milling and baking market for specialty bakers and millers. It's a hexaploid heritage variety. Some people believe it confers less problems with gluten, although I should be clear, it is not a gluten-free wheat by any means, but some people believe by virtue of it being an older, not modern wheat variety, it's more digestible. And it's not, as I said before, not going to yield as much as the other varieties we talked about. In trials that I've seen, it's tended to yield about, I would say anywhere from 30 to 50% less than the highest yielding varieties. So you're giving up a lot of yield there. It's worth it if you have a specialty market where people really are interested in a heritage variety like this and are willing to pay for flour or bread made from this variety. And I think I'll stop there. And once again, thank you so much for listening to this today. If you have specific questions about any of these winter grains, please call one of our dealers or call us at Albert Lee Seed House on the number listed in our catalog or on our website. We'd be happy to answer your questions. Thank you very much.